Hi guys, welcome back to Otto's Garage. Okay, so we've been having a look at this front end and I've had to strip off the intercooler and all the bumper and everything like that, because basically what we're going to do is fit the electric fan. So you can see the car there's got all its radiators off, and that's leaving the intercooler pipes, the thing of beauty, all visible. Anyway, that's the intercooler which is on the mount there, and we've obviously got the front bumper, etc. But this is what we're really looking at. It is the Aeroline electric fan. Now what I've done is, when the radiator was on the car, I've basically just marked up where I could get to with a pen where that's got to be, and the intercooler hose just kind of clears it, goes over the top and down this way. I can't come across any further because the turbo sits in that position. So basically mark it up while it's on the car and then strip everything off, and then we're just going to have a quick look at the instructions and what's involved. Okay, so basically with the fan in position, you've got to determine which way you want the cables to go. I'm going to have these coming downhill so they run across the chassis, and that's kind of like a cool area. If we're going up here, it's all getting a bit hot around the turbo. So we've got the cables out of the way down the bottom there. You've then got to basically fit these little clips, have got to be fitted onto the fan unit itself, and they just slot into those little grooves down the side there. And then what you do when you've got all of those in place, and there's 4 of those obviously, then work your way around, and the last one there. You've then got some pads. Now these pads basically are going to go against the radiator, and that stops damage of the fins when that bracket sits up against it, when it's in the correct place. So what we need to do is just have a look and check that we've got everything in the right place, and then we can put these sticky pads in position, and then the little ties go against the spring, and that creates tension on it, and then you've got the shut off on the other side, which basically is, it's a bit like an open-ended zip tie basically. This is ridged, and that will go over the top of it and hold firm. So I'm just going to double check a couple of things, and then we'll see if we can't get that put in the correct place. Okay, so with the fan mounted, the only other thing you've got to determine is what the electrics are doing, and therefore which way round that fan is going to rotate and whether it sucks or blows. So again, we can refer back to the instructions here basically, and it's basically telling me that depending on whether you're pushing or pulling, it tells you exactly which way around to go. All you do basically is you just flick the cables over the other way around, and then it will basically, so you know, whether you've got a positive coming down the blue or positive going down the black, it'll rotate one way or the other. We're trying to get it to suck air through because it's fitted behind. Air will be blowing against the front of the radiators, and then this is just going to help to pull some of that through, and then hopefully that should do the job. So basically all I've got to do now is determine which way we're going to go on there. I'm just going to drop a bit of power onto this. That'll tell me which way it's going, whether it's sucking or blowing, and then basically I can run one of these down to the earth chassis point, and the other one's going to go back up to the water pump controller, and that will tell it when to start and when to stop. So just with some real basic electronics, in effect a 12-volt battery, we're just going to try this and see which way it's going. So that's basically spinning around that way when I'm feeding live down the black wire, and negative is the blue wire, and that's pulling basically. So that's wanting to pull the air through it, which is what we want on the car. So I know that my live feed is going to be the black and my ground is going to be the blue on that one. Obviously if we change it around the other way, it'll blow, so I'll just show you that anyway. And now that's sucking and turning down. There is a sticker on it that's 12 volts saying that it'll rotate that way round when we put live down the blue and earth on the black, but I'm going to go the other way and we're going to turn it backwards, if you like, and suck it through. Happy days. I've been having another look at some of the electrics and basically just trying to tidy up this rear loom, and so this is what we've got so far. So I've been just putting all the wires into the convoluted tubing and then just taping where the junctions are, so it gives a nice non-snag free junction to there. And I've fed that down under the original loom line there. That continues down the car, so you can see that coming through, and then basically what I've done is just temporarily just zip tied it to the cage at the moment, just before we get some final clips on there. I'm going to use similar clips that we've got down here basically to locate the loom, so that'll keep that nice and neat. And then I just need to work on the correct length. So I've fed that up underneath, and we've got it coming through a hole in the dash, in the firewall, and then that'll go into the back of the Motor Gadget Blue unit there. You always want to try and build reliability into a system, and at the moment I've temporarily wired these up just by sticking the ends, the stripped ends, straight into the connections basically. But obviously that could lead to something breaking, and then something simple means the car won't start. So what we're going to do is we're going to just replace these frayed ends with a little circular connector and put a bit of sheathing on the back of that. So basically that'll mean that in the future they should be good ones. Obviously where you've got this clamp system down here and you've got a screw in the back of that, you can't get a hoop around it. So in that instance we'll use one of these slotted ones, and that will drop down into the hole and clamp firmly to it. So I'm just going to get those sorted out. Well, I've got those done now, so now you can see they've got proper heat shrink and proper connectors on it. The other thing that I've done as well is on the back side of these terminals, the screw terminals, I've just dropped a very small amount of thread lock just on the back of the, you can see that there, where that screw is. Come on, get in focus. There you go. There's just a bit of thread lock just on there as well, just to stop that from kind of falling loose. I didn't want to put massive amounts in because you may have to undo them, but it should just hold that nicely now. So that's all ready to go. Okay, side indicator. Ideally it would be further back, but obviously we've got our shut off in the way there. So I've just drilled a 20mm hole here with a step drill bit. I think these might be Ford Sierra or something like that, but they're a standard Ford off eBay basically. All I've got to do now, she will fit in there, but we do have to just file some, see where those little lugs are each side. We've just got to file into here, and then basically that'll mean that will locate in there nicely, and we can make the terminal connections on the back. I've replicated those little lugs there then. All I've done basically is just use a file with quite a sharp corner on it, and that means I've been able to just get in there and you know, match them up to what's on the light unit. So now when you put the light unit in, she goes in at an angle, but then you twist it and kaboosh. Kaboosh indeed. That holds it in nicely. And if I want to get it out, I can just give it a twist and give it a pull. Here's a neat little trick for you. So you want to put a bit of shrink wrap over your terminal, but you need a chunky piece of shrink wrap, and then of course the other end of it is too big. So what I do is I use 2 pieces of shrink wrap. So you basically get the big one, shrink that on first, the thing will focus, and then you can slide the little one over the big one and shrink again, and that will give you this detail. So you basically then end up with a step going down, and the last bit then goes around the cable here. That works quite well. Some final wires being fitted into the Motor Gadget Blue and the distribution board, and it all takes a bit of time because, as you can see, it's all quite fiddly, and trying to get them neat is also a bit of a job as well. But anyway, we've managed to get most of those in there. The feeds are all in, and we've got the triggers to do on this side. Basically that's the next step. I've got a couple of extra ways over here which will have things like the reverse light feed, and I think there might be something else going on there, maybe to gauges, something like that, lights, I don't know. But in any event, we're getting there bit by bit, and again it's just being methodical with it. This blue wire is just a temporary earth, that's going to get taken out, and the only 2 that I haven't got down there are the feeds down the bottom here, these 2 for the starter motor. So that's another little job as well, but we're getting there bit by bit. It's water pump time. We need to get it fitted. So you should be familiar with this now. This is a BMW water pump, and it replaces the mechanical pump that is on the engine ordinarily. And I'm going to fit it down below where that piece of card is, below the wiper motor. And then there's a hole in the bulkhead down there, and we're going to come through there and attach a hose onto the outlet there. That big one sticking up, that's our water pump replacement plate basically, so we need to connect those 2 together. And then the other one, the inlet, is coming from that water pipe down behind the gold steady bar there. So that's the plan. So I've got to offer it up underneath, and then we'll make some holes and we'll bolt her up in situ, and then I've got some pipe which is on the way, and that can make the connections, all being well. So let's just see what that looks like. Inside the car it's a little trickier. We're going to come up under the dash basically, and then we're going to fix it up onto that top of that bulkhead up there basically. The hole over there, this one, that's where we're going to go through to the engine and to the water pump, and somewhere in there should be a corresponding pipe. But anyway, we'll find that. It's over there somewhere. Well, it's in. I don't know whether that was a brilliant idea hanging it down there, but in any event, it's in. But what an absolute bitch to get to. Just getting to the fixings, it's just no room down there at all. And having the cage in Means you can't just kind of lean into the footwell and do it. But in any event, it's in, and this is what it looks like. So at this end you can see we've got our pipe coming through. That's the outlet pipe, so that goes to the engine. I've had to open that hole up a little bit. And then inside the car, I've basically suspended it on rubbers. So it's got a good bit of isolation, because obviously this thing's going to make a bit of noise. But she's completely suspended on rubbers and firmly fixed there. We've got our electrical connector block down the bottom here. I can get to that easily enough. The only other thing I've got to do is on the inlet, we've got to make some kind of hole up through here, so that we can get our hose on in that position to go over to the engine block. But it's in. What a bitch. With that water pump fitted, it was then time to have a look at the power steering pump. Now, some of you before will have seen that we had this quite nice bracket which was available off eBay, but it's specifically designed for the Astra pump. So basically where those 3 little cotton reel threaded mounts are, the vibration mounts, they go into there, into these little lugs that they've built on that. I had this powder coated, and then all I've done is I've just made up a couple of alley brackets, bolted those two together, and that now sits down in there. And what I was really, that's it, just trying to get that in decently. Just got to get that down quite right, because when the pump is in there, the cap just clears up into this hole on the bonnet up here. But what I'll do is I'll get that bolted in, I'll drop the pump in, you can have a look and see what I mean. It's bolted in, and that is very firm indeed, and exactly what we want. And the great thing I like about this is that I can still get down here, so we can squirt a bit of rust proof in there at a later date. So let's just get the pump mounted up and have a look. And that's the cap there, just nicely down there and clear of the bonnet, which is cool. And then when we open up the bonnet, there's our pump. So that little cradle is ideal. Now all I've got to do is just put the nuts on the other end of the cotton reel bolts, but I'm not going to do that just yet, because I've still got to get a hose made up. You can see around here. So we've got a port down there, that one there. So that'll just give us the main pressurized line, and that'll run down the side of the chassis rail, across the bulkhead, and down to the far side of the pump over there. And then we've got a return coming back, which is unpressurized, and I want to mount a oil cooler just in here below the VIN plate, and then that will cool the fluid as it goes back into the pump, which will be ideal. Another little job that we've got to do is basically replace the temporary bolts, or sorry, the nuts that are holding on the turbo. They were just really put there so that I could work out all of the tubing, etc., for the intercooler. But basically we've got some of these now, and these are the correct nuts that we need. The studs I don't need to replace, they're okay, but I do need to change those nuts and put some proper nuts on there. And you can see these flange nuts have got a self-locking gripping action on the back. So basically I'm going to get those. I can do that in situ, I'm pretty sure. I don't have to take the whole turbo out, but I'm going to get and swap those over. And then the other thing that I also need to do is change the bracket at the back, which basically holds the actuator for the wastegate. So there's a bracket on here, and it was at the wrong angle. So now all that's, the turbo's in the correct place, I can determine the exact angle on that, but I've got to kind of do a cut and shot weld job on there so we can get the actuator in. Because once that is in, then we're basically looking at getting the radiators and the intercooler back on at the front there, and then that will mean I can get the bumper on and get that off the floor, because at the moment it's kind of taking up a bit of space and I don't want to step on anything. In any event, all that lot, hopefully we'll be back on there today. taken the bracket off and just cleaned that up there, and then I've actually cut the mount off the bracket. And then basically, if you look down there, you can see I've just temporarily put the actuator rod down onto the wastegate there, just down at that point there. So what I can do now is set this in the right position so that all of the let's just get that back on there. So all of the rod and everything clears the engine and all of the bell housing, and you can see there now. I'm going to have to mark that, and we can re-weld that onto that point, and that'll be in the correct place. The little tube here by my thumb coming up, that's just a vacuum hose, so that'll pressurize, and when that pressurizes, that'll push the rod against the wastegate and open the wastegate, and then happy days, swoosh, we'll get that lovely noise. Anyway, that's all just for kids. So with that welding done, I've just brushed that up, and then we've given that a coat of paint. While that's going to dry off, I'm actually going to have a look at changing those nuts on the turbo, and then we're going to be there with that front end, I think, pretty much. So that's cool. That's it. It's in. So we've now got our repositioned actuator. Yeah, and I've been over it and changed the nuts as well. So the nuts down here are all changed, they're all correct. That turbo is all in its final resting place. So happy days with that. I just got back from work to find a delivery, and I just had to get it on the car straight away. I think you'll agree, it looks pretty awesome. That's it, we had a few stickers arrive, and we just had to get them stuck on there. They're quite easy to do, actually. What I've done is I've applied some soapy water, basically, and a sponge, and then just cleaned the door off and left the soap on there, and then basically peel all the backing off the sticker and just position it on. Because it's soapy and wet, it'll give you 2 or 3 attempts to get it in the right place. And then basically I used a tile adhesive squeegee, and you just keep running that over it until all of the moisture comes out from behind the sticker. But basically it was quite straightforward. I'll just get that's the squeegee that I was using on it, and a very nice rubbery edge, sharp edge on it, but it's kind of really soft as well. You know, you're not going to scratch any of the paint with that, because you've got that nice flexible soft edge on there. But that was just great. That got all of the marks and everything out of the back. And then what I found was in a couple of areas, especially around here, there was some like ridges which weren't sticking down. And anyway, I just dried off the whole of the sticker area, and then basically went over it again with the squeegee, and they just pushed down and stuck absolutely fine. So there she is. And there's the rear, and that's got a similar treatment with a couple of stickers there on the rear bumper. Still need a little bit more work to do. That light obviously needs fixing on there, but we are getting there with it all now anyway. Well, I can tell you, just little jobs like that help on the long road to building a car, when you get those little details right, and it gives you some idea of exactly what it's going to look like when the car's done. So I think they look fantastic, and I hope you agree on that one. Anyway, that's another episode of Otto's Garage done. I'm still plugging away at those little electrical jobs inside, and the heater matrix is due any time, so we're going to try and get that fitted, and then I think we should be able to get the dashboard put back in when we've got a few pipes connected up behind there. And yeah, just stick with it, we'll get there in the end. I'll catch you on the next episode of Otto's Garage. Bye now.
Bye bye!